Okay, it's aiming at me. Do I need to just turn the whole thing around, or is there a?
No, you can do a selfie, just turn around.
No, I have no desire to do a selfie. I just wasn't sure whether there was a camera on the other side with a flip thing on it. All right. All right. Let me call the meeting of the OHAC to order and let's get going.
All right.
So, first order of business, pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, second order of business is review and approve, hopefully, the meeting minutes of the 1st of June, which was actually the May meeting that had been delayed for some reason that I don't remember. So those meeting minutes are next in the package that I put in front of you. And I did send those out before. Any comments on those or questions or deviations, changes, jokes?
Make a motion to approve them as presented.
Is the motion seconded?
I'll second motion.
All in favor? Aye.
I was not here, so I'll just abstain.
So 4 in favor. Oh, aye.
Excuse me, so do you have the binder for the airport committee's attendance?
No binder.
I'll approve minutes. I'm gonna go back to the
Along the way. It has feet.
Okay. No, I didn't even know such a thing existed.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone here know about this or remember anything about it?
I
Okay.
didn't know it exists in the office, I didn't know.
Did anyone pick it up and walk away with it?
I mean, I have the minutes up until,
Up until the point at which
yeah.
and I've been sending them in to her, but I didn't realize there was a binder someplace. Okay, so, meeting minutes approved, 4 aye, 1 abstain.
Well, the meeting minutes only show 3 in attendance.
Oh,
Mike thought he was here, but
I
okay.
just checked my calendar and I was not here.
So should I make that 3 approved and 2 abstain?
Yep.
Okay. We can handle this. Okay, old business. This goes back to the list of things I thought that we might need to look at. There was a discussion on the proposed ordinances. These are the Citizens Committee proposed ordinances as to whether or not we as a committee would make any comment on it. Jeremy, you had asked that this stay open at one of the previous meetings.
okay.
So do you have, so I'm opening the floor to discussion on what we should do. Should we do anything in terms of weighing in on the Citizens Committee board proposed ordinance? And Jeremy, I'm looking at you because you were.
Sure, yeah, no, I think the time is coming on for that. I know there've been some good letters to the editor and some of the publications. I think people have stood up for or against it. Obviously this is a citizen's petition regarding the airport. I think it's, what I've found uncomfortable about this committee in the past is it's taken sides and really has not been the educational platform or the venue of communication that I think it was intended. So on the other side of that, I think taking a position for or against is counterproductive where we are right now. So I think this is really a town-wide decision. Obviously, there are people canvassing the town and encouraging people to vote certain ways. And that's part of the process. I think my understanding is that a lot of the boards are not acting as boards. They are voicing personal opinions and stuff like that. So I think, staying in line with that effort isn't unwarranted. So obviously, everybody knows what I do for work. I'd love to just stand up and be like, yeah, this is, bad, but I'm not gonna do that. Not interested in that. People need to make an informed decision. And while I think what I would provide, to the conversation would be informed, I understand that there feels like there'd be bias and stuff like that. So, I see it as right and wrong. Obviously, I'm an airport manager and stuff affects me, but I think people have to, I think enough of the town are standing up and saying that we don't believe that this petition is, obviously everybody feels like there's plenty of people on both sides of the argument. There are. So I think us weighing in right now is counterproductive. I think, as the chair, you standing up saying, the committee voted, recommended that we vote this down. I think everybody's just gonna, snicker and
Everyone knows the opinions of the people on the board.
I think so. Yep.
Okay, and is there any other discussion on them? Anyone else want to weigh in?
Yeah, I echo what Jeremy said when our conversation was on this in the past, that this is not our position for this particular situation. In this situation, on this particular subject, I did the letter you submitted, and you understand we asked you to chair, but it was independent of that, and I think.
Yeah, I wanted that to be absolutely
No,
clear.
I get that. It's good, but I'm saying, you set forth things in a concise, clear way, and it wasn't, just an objective perspective and your personal viewpoint. I think that was done well, but in a neutral way.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, so the impression I'm getting is that we can move on from this agenda item with no action. All right, if not hearing any disagreement on that, that agenda is closed, no action taken. The next item is the comprehensive plan, Town of Owl's Head. We had a discussion earlier about the fact that the comprehensive plan includes a lot of action items associated with the airport and with this specific committee. I've copied those. They are, I put them in wrong order here, I guess. The page that has page 23 at the bottom and it has a highlight on it. That's the first of the pages. And what I had done is went through the comprehensive plan, searched for any place that said airport, read where it said airport, read if there was an action item or even something remotely like an action item associated with it, and highlighted that. There's several pages here that come out of the comprehensive plan. My reading of them is that they fall into about 5 categories. You might categorize them somewhat differently. It looked to me like 5 categories. One is a discussion on the aquifers. And second is a discussion on the interlocal agreement. There's discussion on APAC, as not OHAC and not AUG, but APAC, in terms of how Owl's Head's voice is heard on APAC. There's some discussion that's associated with the code officer coming out to the airport at specific times and our involvement with that. And there's discussion on essentially getting involved in other regional groups. And I honestly don't know what those are at this point.
One of the main ones would be the Maine Aeronautical Advisory Board.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The Maine Aeronautical Advisory Board.
Aeronautical Advisory
Yep, so MAAB, it's a state board that works with the Department of Transportation. And they do things like, the last meeting, they're like, hey, we should get rid of aircraft excise tax. Like, no, you can pay for our cars and boats, but not planes.
No, okay.
So, anyway, mixed opinions on that, but that's another one of the boards that deal with this type of stuff throughout the state.
Okay. That makes sense. I think a lot of what they were aiming at were things like that, things like APAC, and discussions associated with commerce organizations that are working to advocate for airports and other things of that nature for bringing money into the state. I suggest I give you guys a couple minutes to read through those things and see what you think about, or if you have other opinions on the action items I highlighted there.
Do you know what the town does? The town does its utmost to protect the Valley Cove from polluted stormwater runoff from the airport. You know, I've never had any interaction with any person from the town that would
I
help
have no idea.
protect that.
That's kind of why I hit a lot of these things. I think that when the town put together their comprehensive plan, they said, and just as a quick aside, I've run into this numerous times in my career. Here's all the things we have to do.
Copy and paste.
Nobody's done any of those or taken them for action or taken them up and said, all right, I'm going to run this to closure. They just sit there. And I think it would be appropriate with this group if we look at one of these action items and say, okay, this is a dead issue at this point, that we do something to close it. But these are the things associated with the airport and with the committee.
Well, I can tell you, I can report that number 4 on page 136 happens on a regular basis. Code enforcement officer is given an in-depth look at every ongoing thing at the airport.
You did mention that in the previous meeting, and
He comes over a lot.
Yeah.
But I also did give the assessors a full tour last week as well. So we went through all the buildings and facilities, took them on a full grounds tour, building tour, so they could better understand
okay.
their assessment role and stuff. So
So just to clarify something, so, he's over there a lot. Is it on an investigative
Yeah,
capacity to double check and check boxes and all that?
Yeah. So he came over, the David Carter hangar, he came over to inspect that. Trying to think what the other issues, obviously the tanks, we had him come look at the tanks just so he's aware of what was there, all the fire suppression stuff. Obviously we did a full tour of the hangar, taxi lane phase 2. What was their other? It's been a walk through the terminal hangar, but yeah, so he's kept up to date on anything that we do over there.
If I can ask a question, I don't think it's a CEO thing, it might be, I'm not sure. So if, as an example, if you have proposed to do like a hangar project and the DEP says, before you can complete this, you have to have seeded the lawn and all the things before this is completed, or before this asphalt's fully laid down or whatever. But if they give you a stipulation where this has to be done at this certain point, does that have to go through the CEO or does the DEP send somebody out
DEP is very,
to double check that?
honestly, DEP is not very involved. So it's really the responsibility of the consultant to make sure that the permit is
consultant be?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood the answer to the question.
So she's asking like the permit, like who, like I'm guessing for enforcement issues or validating what a permit says, does the state come out, or does the DEP send someone to do that? The answer is no.
So if the DEP sets out a parameter that
Yeah.
by this time in this project, these, I don't know, this lawn or this grassy area should be reseeded and set before a certain timeline. If they put that out there.
They'll never come check on it.
So then who's responding
The
to these things?
consultants, whoever the project manager is.
So in a situation like today, currently, would that be Stantec? Is the consulting
Stantec,
firm?
So I looked at exactly what you're talking about for some reason, as we were bopping along on this earlier. And my experience in a totally different arena is if somebody says, okay, you need to do this, don't forget to do this, then totally different arena, building ships for the Navy. If somebody says, you need to do this, then no one comes and inspects. If you say, you need to do this and I need to inspect it, then you get an inspection before it's done. But it was always, for us, it was always wrapped up in the way in which the original task was given. I don't know whether that happens to you or not, but we see both.
What the
We
state
saw-
is facing, whether it's DEP or anybody, any regulatory body, is there's no staff to do this.
Right.
State has 2 people running the entire state for doing so many things. So that's just the reality.
So basically, if they find out after the fact that you didn't do it, they'll slap you. But-
Yeah, but actually, I hate to say it like this, that they don't care, but they say, just do this next time, or do this now, or whatever. It's just like, permit conditions aren't like, you need to, this is, it is set in stone, but it's not a gotcha type of agency. It's a let's work together to
Okay,
get it done
okay.
right. And I think people see that as, they expect the agency to be like verbatim, that's how things happen, and it doesn't happen that way a lot.
I
And
understand.
but they're really, they work towards getting the best solution for whether it's the environment or whatever the issue is.
Okay.
But it doesn't have to happen like on a strict timeline. If you don't do it, forget about it, throw it out, go to court, and all that jazz. It's really, so some of our permitting efforts, they're like, yeah, no, just put it in the next permit,
Yeah.
all that stuff. It's, people make mistakes, consultants make mistakes. Timelines just don't work out, whether it's appeals or bringing in other people's landscape people, and something gets screwed up. Like there's too much going on to.
Okay. So did the 5 categories I put this in seem to make sense for people? Aquifer, interlocal agreement, APAC, code officer, and other regional groups. Does that resonate?
Sorry, I gotta.
I'm sorry, sure. Aquifer,
Yeah.
interlocal agreement, APAC, code officer, and other regional groups. Because, what we discussed before is trying to take these things and divvy them out. And I really didn't go with 5 because there's 5 of us. I just ended up with 5. And I've already said I'm taking the interlocal agreement and going to try to drive that down to finish it off. I think I'd also like to pick up the APAC issue because I'm concerned about the interactions between APAC and this group, the fact that there are none.
I resent that.
Excuse me?
I resent that.
Well, if there's you. But
Yeah.
but you've never turned up and said, here's what the APAC did.
Oh, no.
But you understand what I'm saying.
I do. Happy to tell you.
And we'll work on that.
Okay.
So, but I think that I'm willing to take the interlocal agreement and APAC as my action items to try to sort out. Are there any volunteers for the others? And I'm not going to volunteer anybody, so if there's things that we just leave for a while, that's fine. So we've got the aquifer, the code officer, and other regional groups.
What would you consider another regional group?
It's whatever,
But I'm wondering if there was something that came to mind to your mind?
No, I mean, I read this and I think I used the exact term they used in here someplace. It's whatever gets implied here. The action item that drew me in this way was the Selectmen and Town Airport Committee should seek to make sure that Owl's Head has representatives on all regional economic development and planning groups. So I think step one of that is figuring out what those groups would be.
Yeah. Also, MCOG, the Mid-Coast Council of Governments, they're doing a lot of stuff with economic development there. That might be something.
Yep.
The Chamber of Commerce might be something. That's all that comes to mind for people that really.
So this is page 182, items 3 and 4. There might be some more elsewhere, but those two are the ones that are, okay, it mentions our group and it mentions these other groups.
So as far as the CEO category, well, that's not my area of expertise. I can certainly ask the person for whom it is, so I can talk to them.
Okay. So you'll pick up that on that, at least to initiate.
I think where Lauren would come in very handy is an aquifer thing, because their group has done so much research on that.
My group?
Your group,
Which group is that?
the Citizens
Conservation
Petition Group.
I don't know if they've done research on it. Dick Carver, who was on the recent zoning remapping committee, he's done a lot of research on it, which is where I got that paperwork.
Yep.
He's not on either of them, so,
He's not part of the Citizens Petition Group?
not the petition group, no.
The Conservation Committee is
I
an
don't think
interesting
it's
thought that I
circulated.
hadn't had until you mentioned it.
Well, weirdly, that doesn't seem to be of a lot of interest. And just to clarify something, he didn't circulate a petition. I just want to.
He wasn't part of the group that designed it, though, didn't help him work on it. I haven't heard that from other members of town.
He didn't circulate the petition.
Didn't circulate it, but
Right.
it was part of
So
it.
he was an advisory
Crafting.
capacity on like the zoning side of it. But because of his other seats he's held, whether it was on the select board or his shoreline zoning and various other things,
Yeah.
he's garnered a lot of research on the aquifer specifically.
Yeah, that's why I thought you would be a good resource for that, because I don't have any connections with them. I don't know if anybody else does.
So the paperwork that I gave to you, and I don't know if I had copies for everyone, but that was a report that was done, that's
Yeah,
out there.
and I've read that. I've read all the various things. And I've read anything anybody has given me on aquifers.
So no, I'm not an aquifer expert at all. I just,
I'm not either.
people that have spent a lot more time than I have thinking about it, reading about it.
I know Lynn talks a lot about aquifers, and I know Ken talks a lot about aquifers, so I don't think I would be the person to bring any value to that topic.
Well, let's try this. Because it is a conservation commission subject matter, and
Let's ask them.
I feel like they should be interested in it.
Yes.
I will present.
Is that kind of like
Ask them.
Ken, as a planning board member, asking the zoning board or the ordinance review committee himself what he thinks about it, and then
I could ask my wife as well. That would work too. She's on the same committee. Just-
I'm not really sure how much more neutral the Conservation Commission can possibly be in this particular application, to be honest. If you do have an issue with that and feel it's a bias thing, then let me know, since I really don't want to go there with you again.
right, I'll get it.
Okay. So if everyone is okay with that, I'm
I'm
happy to
okay.
look into that aquifers thing.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. So I'm relinquishing the CEO, somebody else wants to do that?
If that's what you want to do, you're gonna pick up the aquifer. Okay. And again.
I'll pick up the CEO, because, I mean, I feel like it'd be, I have a
Well, you have the most-
professional relation with him, I have a lot of contact with him about everything, but I don't know if someone else would bring,
I have no problems with you picking it up. If anyone else does, raise your hand. But I think what we really need is that information coming to this group that he's done X, Y, or Z. So I think in the grand scheme of things, what we're gonna want is the code officer coming here periodically and letting us know what he's done so that we can understand.
I'm happy doing both.
You're happy doing both? Okay, I'm
Okay,
happy
or-
if you do both. I've got two, you've got two.
Alright.
Does anyone want to volunteer for looking at other regional groups?
I'll do that, since I'm in the thick of that circle, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. So what I will start doing in the future is all this tasking will be on the agenda every month, and ask who's ever picked up a particular thing to just come in and tell us where it stands. And I know everyone has day jobs except me. So if you come in and say, I haven't gotten to it in the past month, that's fine. Let's just keep it going. I did have as a subcategory, sub-item, sub-agenda, whatever, within that one, Jeremy, asking you if there's any updates on the FAA simulator for the number
I
8.
don't have my phone with me, but the last contact I had with them was probably in the June timeframe. And they recommended a different system. So I don't think they understand what I want. I wasn't looking for, planning services for our airport. I just wanted to have access to the software. So
Right.
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 So no, but I can follow back up with them to get access, because we do have the right to have access to that, so.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
FAA paid for it.
Yeah.
All that. So, it's really just information that we're looking for there.
Right.
What drives the number of aircraft or the number takeoff and landings?
Right.
That's what I think would be a beneficial thing for us to know. Any other conversation on the comprehensive plan action items and anything that came out of that?
Thank you so much. Thank you for highlighting that, that's helpful.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right, moving on to the interlocal agreement. I provided a draft of an interlocal agreement. I think I would categorize this as extremely draft. I was just trying to get some thoughts down on paper to start working. Most of the stuff in what I gave you all is boilerplate from previous things that I've seen. The stuff that is underlined and in italics are the things that I put in where I was trying to make that the meat of the conversation. And what I was trying to achieve, I'm not sure I did by any means. I was trying to achieve something that would ensure that the town is part of any development of plans and have serious points I'm sorry, I'm mangling this. That we are involved enough that we have the ability to make comments from the town, not from individuals, but from a town commenting, and that if we've commented, we get a response. That doesn't mean the airport or the county has to do what we say. It just means that we have to get a serious response and not just get blown off. In looking through various aspects of FAA guidelines, it looks like this is what's kind of expected anyhow from the FAA in terms of working with local communities. But that's the goal I was going for. I don't think these words are going to survive too long. It's an extremely rough draft.
It's a good start.
Wanted to know what your thoughts were. So the floor is open to any comments.
I can't speak for the commissioners, but I know there's an interest in having this dialogue with the town. So I think it's a good effort. So yeah, I think it's something that we should continue to work on.
Okay.
Something that I have not iterated, but the FAA themselves have repeated over and over again, so with reference to the fourth whereas on the first page, that the FAA Federal Aviation Administration here in after FAA has authority and jurisdiction over the airport with respect to design standards and operations. So that in full makes sense, but the has authority and jurisdiction over the airport, they have time and time again saying they do not regulate airports, they regulate airspace. Quote, specific airspace, not airports. And that's the Costa Rican that is quoted a couple of times specifically addressing that comment or that question from our select board.
Really?
My understanding, this was Mr. Page's question to him, my understanding is the FAA regulates airports. And he specifically cited, no, we regulate airspace. The towns regulate land use, we don't govern the airport or the.
And I'm sorry, who said that again?
I don't know if he's still the rep, but.
He is, he's a senior aviation
Ralph-
planner for
Ralph
DOT.
Nicosi recently.
Okay.
So I would just if they're putting out specific statements so that we don't get it. So there's no
Yeah.
ambiguity, I think we should use that.
Well, and this is the area that like, as I said before, I just grabbed boilerplate from the last one.
I would recommend that Lauren contact Ralph and get a clear.
So his own words in writing, aren't, you think they've changed?
I think you should talk to Ralph. I think there's some interpretation issues.
Well, he's on video recording and in letterhead.
This isn't court, but I get you.
No, it's not court, I'm just saying.
But this
the
was all
cross
approved by
references to
Ralph as
factual
well.
information.
The interlocal agreement, this clause was reviewed by the FAA. And
Well, I've taken responsibility for putting the interlocal agreement together. I'll delve into this a little bit and see, if I've got this, what's right or wrong.
David, I'd encourage you as well to speak with Ralph. They actually have a community liaison now too that might be a good asset to bring into this conversation. Because I always hear about what the FAA says, and the FAA just never, it seems to be conflict with it.
Well, having spent 30 years in DC, yes, there's often lots of conflict within any bureaucracy. And what I didn't understand when I first started getting involved in this is there's the FAA regulatory agency, and there's the FAA providing funds out for airports development and supporting, and those two roles are very different.
There are multiple entities like that.
But I've got, like I said, I've taken responsibility for this. You're asking a question. I will get into it and see what I can find to make sure that that's right.
Because the FAA does tell airports what is safe and what isn't safe, and what we have to comply with. So yes, there is land use stuff. The FAA doesn't, Alice has airport 7 times in their report. So.
Well, and forgive me. I know I've referred to my previous life as a faceless bureaucrat several times already, but I was really good at tracking down what the instructions and regulations actually say.
Yeah, that's good.
I used to drive people nuts because I'd actually read their references. So I'll take a look at that and make sure we get it right.
Sure.
Good.
So I've got to ask, I want to ask explicitly, the direction I'm trying to go with this, does this make sense to the committee as a whole? The direction of, yes, we need to be involved. Yes, the county will hear from us, and if they hear from us, we want an answer.
The county may not hear from this board. This board's role is through the select board.
I'm sorry, I did not mean us, OHAC, I meant
Right,
us, Town of Halifax.
Yes, they're more than willing to have that conversation.
So the way I would envision this happening is if the airport is putting together a new modernization plan or something of that nature, I can envision this group investigating it, looking at it, drafting a letter for the select board, but we would not send the letter over my signature.
Yes, that's how
Makes
that process would work.
Yeah,
Sure. Yes.
But the great thing is, like, the primary architect of that future development planning is here, this group. So it's great, we can shape whatever conversation that the town would like
right.
into that. It's not a big deal.
Well,
To dispel some of these myths that nobody's listening.
right. Well, the aspect of the myths of no one's listening is listening doesn't necessarily mean agreement. And when you have lots of people replying, and you as the last modernization plan, there's 160, 170 pages of public comment, and about 6 to 10 pages of people that disagreed, and their comments were not acted on. That looks to them like they weren't listened to. That's human nature.
One recommendation on the first page, number 2, on agreements, A, and then part I.
Yeah.
I would add airport development plan to master plan and business plan.
We don't really have it. The master plan is the development. We don't have there's no separate.
It is separate, it's not separate, okay? So David Dunham, let me ask you, in your letter to the editor, you commented on the airport development plan having, let me get this right.
I misspoke that it should have been the master plan.
Okay, I just wanted to, because I didn't understand.
I
learned something. So,
I intended to be referring to the airport master plan. I maybe used the incorrect term.
modernization, my bad, I misspoke also. So airport modernization plan, that's.
Yeah.
That's,
I think the title was actually Airport Master Modernization Plan,
and
and it is on the web. But I did say includes but not limited to. If the airport changes the terminology,
Oh, we'll let it right now.
then there's still the intent is still there.
I'm trying to recall the original interlocal, if we had to have a definition of airport or aircraft, that's strictly ordinance specific.
I don't remember. I don't remember whether it was in the original interlocal agreement.
Yeah, there was a definition in the original.
Okay.
So maybe we have
It's the same, it's similar to the definition in the citizens petition, with the exception of the addition of impacted capacity for factors to consider.
All right, so there's a definition in the original for airport, but not specifically, it includes aircraft. So maybe we tie the definition from the original.
Okay.
to that.
Okay.
That was on the first page. Original. No, that's a good start.
Thank you. Other comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
How does the vote on the 28th, if that agenda passes, I don't know what's called, agenda item, warrant item, article item passes, how does that affect this?
Well, if that warrant item passes, you could easily argue that this is irrelevant. If it doesn't pass, then it is relevant. I think the next question would be if that passes, and then passes any suits or associated legal action associated with it. Fully recognize that I was approaching this from the perspective of thinking it won't pass, but this may be irrelevant.
So if it doesn't pass, are we going to put forward what we worked on before as a group to the selectmen, to the voters for consideration?
Well, we put it forward to the selectmen, and they have the option of putting it forward to the voters or not.
Yeah.
My understanding is the intent is there to do that.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
So I think there would be some value if we formalized the work that we had done with that document into petition form and start circulating that now. And that would be that would create a deadline for when this petition would have to be heard by a town meeting. So obviously there'd have to be a public hearing, but I think that's a valid next step should the citizens petition pass, to give the voters another opportunity to control commercial development in the town.
And then like a follow-up to the,
Yeah.
isn't there a committee working on the interlocal agreement already? Wasn't there a committee?
There was a committee, but
It was ad hoc.
it was an ad hoc committee. My understanding is that there's no one working on it now.
Well, you,
I am.
the David White Committee.
But the ad hoc committee put together a proposal that the county turned down. That's my memory of it. Is that
That's
how you? Okay.
Did the county or did the voters? I can't remember how that worked. Wasn't it put in front of Snow for town vote?
Yeah, so the county and the select board approved it, and then it went to town vote, and the town voted it
This is
down.
a separate subject. The ad hoc committee created a different interlocal, presented to the county, and they wouldn't agree to it.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
Yes. So there have been 2 attempts so far at a interlocal agreement that have failed at different points. The county and the town got together, and the first one got voted down massively. It was like 2,952
The 3.
to 3, which is more people that are in the town.
Well, not everybody that voted had cards in their hand either. but-
Yeah, but it was voted down.
Democracy.
The second one was put together by the ad hoc committee, and the county didn't accept.
No, they
it.
didn't entertain,
Did not entertain it at all. So we didn't get to the town vote.
So maybe could, if you want to proceed forward with this, could we look at, maybe take those 2 and view them? And see, because I know I've looked at both of those and I don't remember points of either one of them. So, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, we can easily do that. I did that and putting what I got together here, and I was actually on the ad hoc committee until I left it. But yeah, we can do that. I will find those and send them out in an email so that everyone has copies of what we had before. Actually, the original that was signed, the one that didn't get approved at the at the town meeting, the one that the ad hoc committee put together, and what I've got here. So.
Mike, so I understand your question. You didn't understand the point of either one of them being the ad hoc interlocal proposal, or?
I don't, well, my point is that, I just personally, I don't remember the points that they failed on, whether it be through the town vote or through the county agreement. So, before starting another one, if we're gonna take that on, maybe we should read those 2, because there's obviously, maybe this encompasses those aspects, so I don't remember them. So I don't really wanna.
Well, I'll send them out so you can see them. My personal memory, this is actually where I started getting involved in the airport, is at the town meeting where the first attempt at a new interlocal agreement came up. My opinion was that interlocal agreement gave the town no voice in what the airport did. And I think that opinion was shared by many people in the town meeting, and that's why they voted it down.
And something to that.
Yeah, sure.
The other thing is, a big concern is that it was legally obligating us and tying us to the county as well as the FAA. It was legally obligating us to whatever their demands or what their parameters were that they'd set forth for, we have to do this because of this. So that would have legally required us to do any of those things.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. That's the way.
Well, the county doesn't need to do that because they don't need an interlocal agreement. They want an interlocal agreement to foster goodwill to the town.
But by putting
There's
us.
zero responsibility of the county to do.
But asking the town to sign into a legally binding document, and acknowledging that we were acquiescing to that was a very different
Like
thing.
the first agreement.
No, that's not what that did. That
No,
didn't.
the agreement that had been signed had more of a voice for the town. The agreement that the town turned down, I agree entirely with what Lauren's saying. Because we were agreeing that we had no authority, at least this is the way it looked to me when I read it. Agreeing that we have no authority is something I thought was not a good idea. That was actually my first letter to the editor.
Yeah.
Was that one, which has got what got me invited to the ad hoc committee. And I think the ad hoc committee was going extreme in one way, and I'll be very honest, Jeremy, I think you were going extreme in the other way. I read your responses to the ad hoc committee. And
Oh, I know. Yeah, that caused a lot of. That was supposed to be banter between Ken and I, but it
Yes.
ended up being a public document that.
well, what
you know, I've learned my lesson.
What you viewed as banter between Ken and you,
Yeah. That's Ken and I's
I-
relationship.
I
We do that every
viewed-
day. We're doing it on Saturday.
I viewed as
Yeah.
not negotiating in good faith.
I would have expected that if I was saying putting that out to the general public as a response.
Yes, well,
Ken and I have a very respectful relationship about our stances on this stuff, and I would consider Ken a friend.
but you
So,
understand what I'm saying.
People on the outside would not understand that.
Yeah.
So I get it. Yeah.
I was on the outside enough to be going, what the?
Sure. Yeah. I get it.
So that's my impression, but I'll send
I'm much more cautious now.
I'll send the actual documents out so everyone can take a look at it.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Any other comments on this?
Dorothy Moore is no longer a commissioner. But that's-
Oh, I didn't.
I know.
Yeah, again, boilerplate to be fixed. All right. Next on the agenda is the OHAC charter. And Lauren has put out a draft for us to take a look at.
Can I ask a question before we go?
Of course.
I thought my question is, has the selectmen been asked if they want to give us a charter, or I'm not exactly sure how the charting process works.
I've had some informal conversations on this type of thing with Gordon. Because I was asking him when I got on the board and was immediately voted chairman about the expectations and how we all operate. And the guidance he gave me at that point when I was trying to figure out my role was, look, every one of the committees in the town gets to figure out for themselves how they're going to operate. And having a charter is a reasonable way of describing and determining amongst ourselves how are we going to operate. And I can't remember, I don't have this in writing, but I think I explicitly asked him about a charter and he said, good idea. I may be mistaken about that, but that's my memory. So his view was we figure out how we operate, we figure out the way we do things, and that a charter is a good idea. Within that context, though, the select board clearly has the authority to turn to us and say, I'd like to know about X, Y, or Z. And you guys go find out for us. Actually, a good example of that is this stuff about the electric planes, where we were asked about the project at the airport. And I said, is that something you guys want us to do, is report on things of that nature? And the response I got is it's entirely up to the select board that comes in the new year what they want us to do. Long-winded answer, yes, this is in line with their expectations.
I think it's good to have written parameters.
Yeah.
So you would put forth, I know it's a draft, you put, if we agree on the draft or whatever, the final, you put it forth to the select body for them to approve.
Actually, I think we get to approve this on our own, but I would check that before I do it.
By this draft, it sounds like we should be taking a stance on the citizens petition.
Right.
The committee is intended to be an independent recommending body on aspects of airport while recognizing special conditions and concerns. And we are supposed to report to the select board and keep the community appraised whole from time to time on matters related to the airport.
How does having stand on an ordinance amendment serve to be an independent action?
The whole thing, the whole basis is surrounding the airport.
If we're advocating for or against an amendment that's being presented to the public for a vote, how does that make us an independent body?
We are an independent recommending.
Oh, well,
It's intended to be an independent recommending body, so we are independent. We're recommending that airport matters.
Jeremy, I think what you're focusing on is the recommending body, the recommending. So I'm trying to make sure I understand. I'm not.
Yeah.
So you're saying by recommending, that is something that you see as recommending for or against?
Yeah, recommending body. And also keep the community appraised as a whole. I don't know, I guess I don't see the difference.
Because advocating one side or another of a vote or something, for example, use a vote as an example. If you're advocating for one, voting against it or voting not against it, that's no longer independent. That's having to stand one side or the other on the issue.
Yeah. So the last meeting we had, I actually asked to compromise and produce a statement like that, and it was not welcomed, not agreed to. Trying to strip out the sides of it and just say, hey, here's where you could look for information, make an informed decision. We'd asked about making a statement about this.
I don't remember you making a comment of that nature. I mean, it's a little bit irrelevant at this point. We're trying to discuss the charter.
Yeah.
And
okay.
So with what you said as background, does that mean that you think that wording should be different?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
it's kind of hard if you state facts, like are you really taking a side? So what comments are allowed on what matters? But yeah, no, let's just leave the wording, that's fine. But notify select board of potential violations. So how are we, is this board asking to be tasked with coming over and going through projects, or what is this is just word of mouth stuff, or what?
Well, I think that my interpretation of that is that it lines up with the action items in the comprehensive plan associated with the code enforcement officer.
So does he do that, or do we do that? Who's
So
responsible?
this is a malleable thing, okay, this is not a hard deck at all. So I think, I was also trying to pull from, there are very few places that have, towns that have anything like an OHAC. They
Oh.
might have airports, but I was just trying to come up with different ideas.
Yeah.
No, the CEO is responsible for doing that. I would think, and then going, so yeah, I was using the comprehensive plan, and there are areas in there citing that the CEO should be doing annual checks or whatever checks, and in talking to Matt, he said he doesn't do that, or that's typically not his purview. So I feel like there's gotta be some balance in there. Again, so this goes back to what I have to read and research for the
Right.
CEO category, but, so it doesn't have to be there, I'm just like throwing out concerns and things that have happened that seem to be needing addressing.
Right. Right. And I would argue that this is exactly why we need to talk through the charter, so that we have a better understanding of what it is that we feel like we should be doing. This is, again, entirely contingent on what happens with the citizens petition. But if we continue with the planning board as having the authority that they've had in the past, if they are doing something associated with the airport, should we be weighing in with them on the concerns that we think that the town may have with any action on the airport, separate from whether or not it meets the various ordinances? I'm not throwing that out as a we should or shouldn't. I'm just saying this is the sort of thing we can sort out, or try to sort out a little bit in the charter.
I feel that there's some subjects or some issues where we could be a bridge for that to some degree.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to make APAC meetings, I try to, be on both sides, not both sides, but be there also to hear that side of it, and then, consider it in what we're doing here. So yeah, I think there might be some things that they might be presented with, like, oh, well, this information I've heard, unfortunately, our APAC rep isn't always there. So
He was there last time, though.
So
I didn't say never, I just.
No, I
it's
said,
not
I was
always.
just reporting to the committee that he was there.
So I do have a quick off-topic tangent question about APAC. I've gone online to try to figure out when those meetings are, and I can't find anything.
It's usually the second Monday of the month, because it's always the day before the commissioners meeting, which is incredibly frustrating. And then if we have a delay for some reason, like this last one was delayed because I had to put out a consultant selection,
And
so it got delayed till.
they are open to the public,
They
yes.
are, yeah.
Is it possible to get on whatever distribution list when those meetings occur?
So one of my weaknesses is setting up mailing things, so I go off memory of. So if I'm having a bad day, I actually forget to put people on it, but yeah, so I'll get that set up and put a full distribution.
So I would
It's
greatly,
on the Knox County Meeting website. I think Wendy puts the dates on there.
I've gone to that website many times.
So the calendar, a lot?
Yes, and cannot find it.
I'll touch base with them.
Maybe it's operator error, but I haven't been able to find. So I would greatly appreciate it, because I would like to start going to those meetings.
Cool.
As, seeing as I figured that should be impacting what we're doing here. And forgive me for that tangent.
No, it's
No,
fine,
it's good.
it fits. Again, I'm not emotionally married to this, so would love any ads, suggestions,
What always helps to have something written down in front of you
Yeah,
to start thinking about what makes sense and what doesn't.
something I did put on this paper, but it's a little more abstract. The primary objective of the Allison Airport Committee is to advocate for the well-being and best interests of this town and its residents. It serves to keep the public and town leadership apprised of the airport's current and projected plans and airport-related concerns which may foreseeably impact the town. So it's a little more abstract. It's
I think it's
less
a good,
complicated,
it structures well for a charter. I like it.
so I'll bring that back in.
So here's what I'd suggest we do. We all have this now. I think I asked everyone, I can talk. I would ask everyone to look at it, think about what we might not want on it, think about what things you do want on it. And next meeting, we can talk in more detail about what we agree should be on it or not. Does that work for you?
So I will send this file to everyone,
Yeah.
so you can mess with it as you see fit, add notes, whatever that is.
Do other boards already have, they already have documents that are drafted that compare notes, so, I know was the planning board working on one, Sarah?
I don't know. Each of the committees in Al's head has, in my mind, a very different role from the others. What we do is very different from what the Conservation Committee does. It's very different from what the Planning Board does. And I'm not sure how much we might or might not get out of it. It's certainly worth talking to them, but.
I'm having flashbacks right now of all the stances the old APAC used to make on items.
I'm sorry,
The OHAC. I'm just thinking of all the sides they used to take. And it's just coming back to me now, just thinking about all the comments that were made as the OHAC.
well, so that's something we can try to.
No, it's a new
Sure.
OHAC. It's a new OHAC. That's great to put this in there and expectations, and I think it's a good start to document.
So most boards or committees, they don't really have stances, they at least have a mission statement. So the Conservation Commission doesn't have a charter per se, but they have a mission statement. So it's a little more serious than a vision statement, it's a little more concrete, but with a charter, they don't have a breakdown of like what we're authorized to do. Or a guideline of, protocol according to the select. board.
Right.
Because they're set up, the commission, the Conservation Commission isn't that kind of advocacy.
Right, but on the flip side, the Conservation Committee, commission, whatever, they have funds.
And fun.
And they,
No, I'm kidding.
no,
Funds, yes, they have
funds.
funds. which is
and they have to figure out how to deal with that. So, everyone has different issues.
There have been a lot of questions that I've asked the select board at different times, like, well, you guys don't have a charter, so we don't know how to answer that.
Right.
So we're, inflicting into our own detriment, things that they can't help us with because we don't have a guideline or a guidance.
So I think this is an opportunity for all of us to say, what do we think it should be, and hash that all out amongst us. If there's no objection, I'm going to move on to new business. New business. I've got explanation of records of flights at KCRA, and this, Jeremy, is for you. And I'm not this I put on and commented on in my covering email 3 or 4 months ago. I'm losing track. I got the records from you of the number of flights in and out of the airport, and I've been working on that basis. When we were at the planning board and discussing the number of flights in and out, it really sounded to me like there was another log that I was not given and unfamiliar with that is a more accurate log than what I got. Am I
So I think I
missing something?
gave you the Cape Air employment numbers.
You gave me several things. There
Okay.
were if I had brain, I would have brought them.
So
You had
what
the-
we're provided employment numbers from Cape Air. They
Yep.
give us a PIA employments, and then year end, all the net jets, all the charter aircraft. They all compile those numbers, and that gives us an employment stuff. For flights, Cape Air gives us number of flights in and out, but we also have a guard system which provides us with operations.
So is the guard system the one, there was one of the things that you gave me that you described as it's registering the number of radio transmissions.
Correct,
There's an
that's the
algorithm.
guard system.
That's the guard system.
Yeah.
Okay, so you gave me the guard system.
Yeah.
You gave me the Cape Air in and out enplanements. And is there something beyond that?
No,
No.
not that I can think of off the top of my head, no.
It sure sounded at that meeting like there was another,
So you've got every aircraft has a transponder. And VFR flights are slogging 1,200 for the most part, unless they're given something else, if they've got an IFR plane.
Okay.
So the point is that every plane is legally required to have their transponder on.
okay,
And so all those numbers are recorded, not just that they're flying around overhead
right,
in transit from one place to the other, but where they're leaving from and coming through.
okay.
So those records are unfudgeable.
Because they're directly off the transponder. They're not the radio transmissions. They're not.
That's correct. They're not
Cars do all planes have
hardware.
transponders?
Say again?
Well, no, and then there are a large number of planes that aren't compliant with the new, ADS-B.
So I doubt any of the museum aircraft have transponders.
Guys, I'm not talking, World War II, I'm that's
Yeah, sure.
the sport
but
aircraft, or
Korean?
experimental, World War I or II, or experimental aircraft or sport.
No.
Oh, God, no. Use
But
it all aircraft.
The ones generally using our airport and 98% of the rest of the airports in the country, I'm just saying, most operating non-antique aircraft, non-experimental.
So is there a log of this nature somewhere?
So, kind of. Aircraft are allowed to block their transponders. So they are not seen, or you can't see them on FlightAware. Am I correct, Carson?
Yep. you can.
So there's a void there. So that's why the ADSB is so important, because they can't obscure the ADSB signal in their radio transmissions.
I will volunteer, I'm happy to find the legal literature on that you are legally supposed to be operating your transponder. A lot of people don't. It doesn't mean that that's okay.
It's operating, you can make it private.
You can private.
You can privatize the registration for your aircraft. You still pick up the aircraft.
No, you don't.
You can put in the tail number and it does not show you the owner.
Okay.
This is
Yeah, this is,
Experience versus,
well,
This is
this is the kid who's tracking Elon Musk everywhere, was doing it with this system. So,
yeah.
won't argue here, but it's-
so everything you're talking about sounds like it's gonna, even if it's true or not, assume it's true, it's gotta be in the margins compared to an algorithm based upon the number of radar transmissions. And I've gotta ask, does this set of information conflict with the information that I saw, that you gave me, that what I saw looks like nothing has really changed dramatically in 40 years. So one question about the transponders would be, how far back does that go? But if we have information that is more accurate than what I've seen, why haven't I seen that?
we're going to have to defer to Lauren on this, because I am unaware of what she's talking about. So I'm going to have to back away from answering that question, because I have access to the guard system. I have access to the data that I've been provided, that's been accumulated over the years at the airport. But I don't know about all this other stuff. So
Okay, so you have no knowledge of any ability to use that transponder information to track the number of aircrafts in and out of Alstead?
correct. We use ADSB information for that, not transponder.
Okay,
Because Carson, what are the different types of transponders? Some do altitude, some do.
It's too complicated. There's three different kinds. One of them's far outdated and no longer allowed, and then the ADS-B is the new next generation of air traffic control. That's the new transponder. That's the new trackable system. That's so that is in the future. That is how everybody will be able to get numbers for these kinds of things. There are, if you want to look at the number of aircraft that's not compliant with that system right now, it's mostly small single-engine planes that don't go flying very often. There's a few jets, privately owned jets, that don't show up on that system because they can hide themselves, from the public eye. So right now, all of that information is, it's with air traffic control. There are, what do you call it, civilian type websites that you can go on, like FlightAware is one of them, but I'm not an expert on how to dig through and try to find information in that.
Okay, so all I really care about is the bottom line, is that we are using.
You have all the numbers that I have access
That
to.
we're using the best information available to
Yeah.
figure out whether or not, if what I've been saying is inaccurate, then shame on me, but it's the best information I had. And at that planning board meeting, it certainly sounded like there was better information out there that I didn't have. And so
That's the question for the airport manager. Does FlightAware show the enplanements that you're recording?
No.
So they show a full spectrum, all of the aviation activity going on in an airport. They don't just care about Cape Air or.
Right, okay.
It's a bigger picture.
Okay, I think that's as far as we're gonna get on that one today. And I'm gonna keep that.
I'll go back and watch the planning board meeting to see if I said some term that.
Jared was referring to the ADS-B, the transponder codes. Most planes do have transponders. I'm quite certain that our flights aren't being considered in enplanement numbers that you're presenting to.
That's
Those are the
right.
numbers or to FAA or to
Well,
whatever, but those flights that we make are still being recorded on a system like FlightAware. That's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
So the way the conversation went at the planning board, somebody asked, are the numbers you have accurate?
Oh, I remember that meeting.
And you
We
stood
were
up
downstairs.
and you stood up and said, no, they're not.
I'll go back and watch that because it was his statement that was inaccurate. But yes,
No, the question was, are the numbers that you're using accurate?
they were different. No, there was different. Yes, I remember that now. I will go back and find out what the difference was, but yes.
So, and I did not do a good job of trying to explain how I understood it, but, let me try to do a better job here. In engineering, there are often analyses and techniques that give you baselines. And I know this may be a stupid example, but we had a software program that would predict the roll of a ship in a given seaway. Ships never rolled what that said they rolled in the real world. But a ship in the software that rolled a lot was going to roll more than a ship that rolled a little. So they're baselines. You don't expect them to be, correct to the fifth decimal place. But what you do expect is if something's getting better, if something's getting worse, you see it there. And I tried to explain that, but I was mangling it.
I'm trying to remember if that
Really
conversation was about operations, aircraft operations versus actual aircraft movements.
It's actual aircraft movements, not just enplanements.
Yeah, because it was a difference. So I think
Well,
the
the
statement
question-
was like, there's 40,000, Stantec put in 40,000. And they're like, well, that's not number of flights.
The way I interpreted it was the data I was putting forth on the number of flights in and out was questioned, and you stood up and said it's not accurate. And then
Yeah, so
Jared
it's operations
stood up
versus
and
actual
started
flights.
talking about this transponder system, which made me think, okay, maybe what I've got isn't the best information, and I've been set up.
Nah, yeah. No.
I don't know if it was intentional, but,
That's how it
payments and movements,
Yeah.
in my mind, and I probably most.
Okay.
others.
Yeah, there's two different things. So people look, the law, though, I think there was a talk about, it was whether it was the master plan or something, like Stantec keeps saying, there's 40,000, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'll go back for some meeting. But there's not that many flights. That's the number of movements. There's 3 or 4 movements per flight. So the number is divided by that amount.
Right, and that makes sense within the context of what you said about it records the number of radio transmissions, there's a,
Right.
an algorithm.
So
working.
prior to the guard system, those numbers were assumed or they guessed.
Were what's, somebody
Yes.
sat there and
They
wrote
had
it
a
down,
form,
and
yeah.
I got that.
Right.
But
So we have real numbers now, and you have access to those real numbers.
you showed me those, and there was sort of a translation from, okay, the old numbers to the new. The new numbers actually were lower than the old numbers. That, again, in trying to deal with things that are baseline, that doesn't mean it actually went down. It meant that you changed the mechanism you were
Correct.
using to
Yeah.
measure. But the old numbers showed no significant increase in the number of flights. And in terms of the town's interest, number of flights, amount of noise over the town, if those numbers of flights are staying relatively constant, then we're not getting worse. So I'm just trying to make sure that what I say and what we say is as accurate as can be.
If I could just ask for some clarification, the decrease in number was due to the method of recording
Yes.
that changed?
Well, we can't say that.
The method of counting.
Can't. I have no.
It is likely, it's likely that it was, because when you shift from one method of recording to another, and
Right.
you're at this.
I can't say the
baseline.
numbers were unreliable, but they're different than what when we started actually. Sorry, I got a kid running around with a shirt on.
Okay. It's often true, I have no idea whether it's true in this case, but it's often true that when you shift from the mechanism, the way you record things, and you see a shift, that's purely from shifting the way you're counting. And so that's what I saw when they went from, somebody in the airport going, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, to this mechanism, what's the system called, guard system?
Yeah.
So you see that in the data as you go from one mechanism to another. I don't think that reflects a real reduction in the number of flights. It just indicates that you change systems. That you can't prove that one way or another. Okay, I think we've beat that one, at least as far as we're going to today. But the next one is a question for Jeremy as well. When he comes back in, I'll ask him about that. This is the select board requested information on the electric plane project. I just wanted to get a Reader's Digest condensed version from him on what is it he's going to say. I hope it's locked out.
What do they call their aircraft again? Do you guys know? The electric people. I don't remember what they call their aircraft.
So Jeremy, the next agenda item is actually a question for you as well. The select board's requested information on the electric plane project. I have no knowledge of this. I don't know that I need any knowledge of it, but you're going to report to them on Monday.
Correct.
Can you give us a Reader's Digest condensed version of what it is?
The county, trying to be a great neighbor, has invested in electric
That was a paid political announcement.
electric aircraft technology to allow us to. So we're installing an electric aircraft charging station. So we'll be on the Beta Technologies charging network, and some of the airport's business partners have agreements with manufacturers of those aircraft to do cool stuff. And so that project kicked off last week, and they'll be back on Sunday. And we hope to have the EV chargers, the vehicle chargers, installed by the fall. and the aircraft charger will be fall in the spring, so.
Okay, so it's kicked off, that's the contract was signed, or what is kicked off?
Yeah, so the contract hasn't been signed, we finalized the design,
Okay,
and, so the contract is pending. And, but the commissioners awarded it, I don't know, a month ago or so to this company. So it opens up the possibility of, right now it's CTOL, conventional landing, takeoff and landing, and then hopefully merging into VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, short aircraft. So.
okay,
Quiet airplanes, renewable. Safety factors increased due to being able to take off vertically and land vertically.
So
Zero
there's
visibility.
the role of the airport is simply to have a place to charge these planes.
Yes, to invest in that.
Are you involved in any, do you have contractual relationships, or will you have contractual relationships with any of the organizations that are developing these planes?
They exist now.
So you're already on contract with these?
They're,
Or do you mean the planes already exist?
the planes do exist. But there are agreements with the airport business partners to utilize those aircraft.
This is a totally tangent question, and this has more to do with my personal interest than anything. Do you guys use earned value management with the guys who are working for you?
Do what?
Earned value management as a way of tracking the.
No.
Okay, just curious.
Happy to hear about it.
May I ask, you say the airport business partners that are invested with the with the CTOL and the VTOL aircraft
Yeah.
to come? These are business partners, are they employees of the county? Do they
They're not employees.
independent?
No. They are people who deal with freight and passenger deliveries to island communities.
So would that be from Offset Island area?
I'm not at liberty to talk about it. But yes, the airport business partners do have existing contractual agreements, non-disclosure agreements with certain manufacturers.
Okay.
So things are coming, things are happening. So, but our role as the county, my role as the airport manager, is just to ensure that there's a charging network in place to utilize
Okay.
emerging technology.
Okay.
Is there a forecasted timeline when they might be utilized as a charging station for aircraft?
I would say spring next year,
Or they actually would be used?
where they're actually be used.
To be fair, they don't tell the pilots when their jobs are going away.
These are not autonomous, these are piloted aircraft.
Are they remotely piloted, or are there aircraft?
My understanding is that one manufacturer is selling these autonomous troop carriers as autonomous troop carriers. But for implementation of this stuff, it's for freight and passengers, so.
Autonomous troop carriers.
Yes. So, currently being flown by the Air Force.
Okay. Having designed troop carriers for the Marines.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on that? Any other issues, other business?
Question.
Any?
Your job secure.
No, it's not about that. They
For
can
at
keep
least
their
6 more
job.
months.
They can keep their job. Is there any other airports that are putting in charging stations like this?
There are 8 installed now, there are 55 more planned.
Cool.
All of them down the East Coast
Nice. That's kind of neat.
and into the Gulf.
How
Whoa.
many would be here?
We would have one charger.
One lonely charger.
I want to be like, oh, I'll have all kinds, but then I'll make newspaper. Oh, they're planning a massive expansion into.
Well, you know, it's like you get electric cars. You get one charger in your town before you have 50. You don't put 50 chargers in one town. You put 50 chargers all over the place, and then you get more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if everything works out, the infrastructure is there to expand that offering with successful operation. So it's kind of neat.
Okay. Anything else on that? Any other updates or other business? Anything anyone wants to bring up?
Nope, I think it's a good start. A lot of topics.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Okay.
All right. Dave, thanks for letting me back in.
We held a vote.
Oh,
It
no.
was a bit.
I abstained.
Right?
So I want to see him run around, I'm sure.
Oh, little turd. See you, have a good night. Yeah. Yeah, you took off his clothes, want to get in the back of the truck, and here comes the American flag or something, you know. Dave, thanks for your hard work,
Thank you.
and, yeah, you've got what I got, so I'll look at that to see what